You're watching Past the Wire TV, the biggest races at the best tracks. From the Kentucky Derby to the Breeders' Cup. The best horse racing coverage is right here on Past the Wire TV.
A very good Sunday morning to you. I am Big Race Jim. Welcome in to Sunday Morning Coffee only on Past the Wire TV, brought to you each Sunday, most Sundays. I guess I can't say each since I missed a couple here and there. Good to be back with you. Thank you to AmWager for helping us bring this show to you almost every week, along with Shorebet Coffee and our great friends at Pleasant Acres and Tampa Bay Downs, celebrating 100 years of racing this upcoming season. Very excited for them, very excited to have them on board and part of the Past the Wire family. Breeders' Cup, less than a week away. I won't be on site this year. It's a bummer, but just wasn't able to make it with all of my other responsibilities. But John will be there. I believe he's heading out there shortly, today, maybe tomorrow, to bring us all of the great coverage. So you can expect a ton of videos, a ton of interviews, a ton of insight, and of course, the Breeders' Cup PDF and Q&A coming up this week. If you have not reserved your copy, if you have not reserved your seat for the live Q&A with the Pick Six King himself, please do so. It's right at the top of the page at pastthewire.com. Breeders' Cup, Friday, Saturday. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. And if you've followed the channel for any length of time, since I've been on board since the summer of 21, 22. And I like to talk about the Brisnet. I feel like it is a fantastic handicapping tool. I'm unable to, unfortunately, share the data with you on the screen so you can see it, but I'm going to talk through it. And I think it's super critical that we look at the turf races for the Breeders' Cup to see how our US-based runners stack up with the foreign runners that we know love the turf and are far superior on turf than our American thoroughbreds. So there is, as I've spoken about plenty of times before, there is great insight and data to be had looking at the class ratings on Brisnet. So, and especially so in the turf races. This is a critical indicator that I look at every turf race. And I think it shares and shows just how well some of our US-based runners stack up against runners from the UK, Ireland, France, scattered throughout Europe, because they are superior on grass. We know this. And it's also interesting, too, I think a lot of us have an inherent bias, right? We go with what we know. We know that AG Bullet is a superstar American turf sprinter, right? So we see AG Bullet, we see her pop up in our past performances, and a light bulb goes off. We know she's good. We know she's good, but perhaps maybe we haven't heard so much about Amo Racing's Arizona Blaze in the last year after he came over for the juvenile turf sprint last year and lost by half a length, finishing second. Perhaps we haven't heard so much of Bucanero Fuerte, a 4-year-old colt for Adrian Murray, another Amo Racing stablemate. Right. So I think my point is that a lot of times maybe we pigeonhole ourselves with what we know because we've heard of AG Bullet, we've seen her run, we've seen her win in the US, but perhaps we don't necessarily know too much about these foreign runners. And I think the class rating really helps us get a better sense of how well the Americans will stack up with the Europeans. So just looking at the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint pre-entries, current class, Arizona Blaze, AG Bullet, Bucanero Fuerte, She's Quality. Those are the top 4 in current class and average current class as well. And I'm looking at my data right here, which is why I'm looking off screen. These horses have been competing against the best horses collectively in this field, right? I think of class rating almost as like a strength of schedule in college football, right? We're going to hear a lot of strength of schedule talk as the college football playoff starts to creep up on us here in the next month or so. And we're going to talk a lot about strength of schedule. And I look at current class as strength of schedule. Who have you raced? Who have you beat? Where have you finished against them? And how does that compare to the rest of the field? And I feel like the data point from Brisnet does an exceptional job of that. So current class with a 121.4 rating, which is rather high collectively, is Arizona Blaze, followed by AG Bullet, almost a full point behind Arizona Blaze. Bucanero Fuerte, just a tick or two behind AG Bullet, and then She's Quality, a tick or 2 or 3 behind Bucanero Fuerte. So those 4 horses, I think, stack up pretty well against each other from a class standpoint. Now, of course, this isn't the only thing that I'll be looking at in this race, but it is one of the main factors that I will use to separate some horses. So Arizona Blaze, AG Bullet, Bucanero Fuerte, and She's Quality tops in class in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We'll move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf, which is the next race. Thanks for bearing with us. So again, what are we going to see here? A lot of foreign runners. Minnie Hauk, which I've spoken to 2 people in the last week that are not super high on this horse in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Could have, should have, probably should have won the ARC, but that was a tough race, shipping across the country or across the world, halfway across the world, to come in for this race off of which would be, a little bit less than a month's layoff. Tall ask, might be up against it at short odds. I saw something on Twitter that in the international betting markets, Minnie Hauk is even money in the Breeders' Cup Turf, which I don't know, might be vulnerable, or she could destroy everybody. She stops in class here along with Rebels Romance, who we know, right? A two-time Breeders' Cup winner already. Um, he's fantastic, and would be that would be super exciting to see him, see him do that again. But Minnie Hauk, Rebels Romance, Amiloc was also up there, and again, another one that if you unless you're super in tune with international horse racing, this could be one that you don't know you don't know all that much about. And that's why John does a fantastic job of staying up on all of this stuff going on around the world, so that when he's needs to explain it and talk about it and know these horses, um, he does a fantastic job. And then you have Goliath as well, which is cool, right? It's cool that they're gonna Resolute Racing is gonna bring Goliath over for this. So let's just break down these numbers. You have Minnie Hauk, Goliath, Rebels Romance, Amiloc. Those are the top four in current class. And current class, Minnie Hauk, vastly superior to these 123.7 for Minnie Hauk compared to 122.6 in current class for Goliath. Same number for Rebels Romance and 122.1 for Amiloc. So looking just at current class alone, you would think that Minnie Hauk certainly has an edge. So interestingly enough, like all of the all of the U.S. based runners are bringing up the rear here. Gold Phoenix, Rebel Red, redistricting, Tawny Port, El Cordobés, all well behind in current class. So interesting, and probably maybe not that interesting, right? I mean, the international runners on grass, like I've said, are better. They're running against better competition. Um, so perhaps not super surprising that they would be tops in the last two that we've already discussed, but maybe interesting at how far removed the U.S. runners are on the grass when compared to these European runners. So Minnie Hauk, Goliath, Rebels Romance, and Amiloc in the Breeders' Cup turf, top four in current class. The Classic is next, but that's not on grass. But I'll just give you, yeah, wow. I mean, Sovereignty well above the rest of the field. Fierceness, Antiquarian, um, many points behind there, which is interesting. Okay, Breeders' Cup Mile, Salon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Lion in Winter and Notable Speech. Notable Speech has always been interesting. I thought didn't have the best of trips in the mile last year at Del Mar. Went off as the favorite, just over 2-1. I think this horse looked really good to me in the Woodbine Mile back in September. Very interesting horse for me here in that race. But again, looking at the current class, the Lion in Winter seems to have a bit of a class edge in here. Several points above Notable Speech and Salon, Sahlan. Salan. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they call it. But last start, only really a couple of weeks ago, um, in the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes at Ascot, finished a length back, finished second in that Group 1, beat a neck in another Group 1 at Longchamp, got kicked around a little bit at Deauville in another Group 1, but ultra competitive in a lot of these Group 1 races at the top tracks across the UK and France. So I think a force to be reckoned with here, and I think that that class rating is justified. I'll have to go back and watch some replays, but the Lion in Winter tops in class by a good margin in the Breeders' Cup Mile on next Saturday. And the last one we'll talk about is the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Minnie Hauk also pre-entered in here. And let's scroll down to the bottom. Yeah, Minnie Hauk towers over this field. I'm not sure where. I'm pretty sure they're going to the turf, but we'll see. See the Fire, another one in tops in class. Jazora and Cinderella's Dream. Those four, again, Minnie Hauk, a couple of points above those other three, but those other three are bunched pretty closely in their class ratings. So again, like we're seeing these horses that, based domestically in the US compared to horses that are running um, in Europe, and it's tough, right? It's tough. Um, at least on grass, it looks like the Europeans have a significant edge this year. And this Cinderella's Dream, Godolphin, Charlie Appleby, we've seen her in the US a handful of times, but not since the Filly and Mare Turf last year, where she lost to Moira. So kind of ironic of talking about this, and we had a North American based horse get up and win that race, but she's been tough, and she's been real tough over in the UK and France. What do we've got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starts this year. 2 wins, 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth. So she's gonna be a handful in here, I think, in the Filly and Mare Turf. But again, Minnie Hauk, depending on where she goes, See the Fire, Jazora, and Cinderella's Dream, tops in class. And the only U.S. runner in any of these that I've mentioned has been AG Bullet, and in the turf sprint. And, she surprised a little bit this year, which, good for her. I don't know. It just seemed like she may have been going in an opposite direction to start that year, that first grade 3 coming back at Churchill, but ran in June and then ran in August, and maybe she needed that one back in May off of a couple month layoff, but she's turned it on and she looks pretty good. But again, she's the only one on this list that was run consistently in the U.S. that even sniffs the class rating of some of these foreign runners. What did we learn? Perhaps nothing new, but I do think it's interesting to see just the difference between the European turfers and the U.S. turfers, and just perhaps how wide of a gap there is. We're going to take a break. I'm going to sip some of my Shore-Bet coffee, and we'll come back and we'll wrap it up with some closing thoughts. Stick around.
Go.
It's simplification and Javier.
This year, for the Pass the Wire annual seminar, we're going to change things up. Why? For you. Everything I cover in the seminars in a clear, concise PDF you can download, print, read off your device, anything you like. Everything, and I mean everything that we cover in the seminars, right at your fingertips. Nobody does it better. And if that's not enough, if you join and ride with me, a private, members-only Q&A where you can ask anything about the Breeders' Cup, get answers, and sharpen your play. Secure your spot at PassTheWire.com and try and make this your best Breeders' Cup ever. I'm surely going to try and make it mine.
Get your seat for the live Q&A if you have not already. I would say the most interesting horse to me over the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup is Forever Young. Can he get over this hump in the US? He's come over. This will be his third trip. Derby, lost the Derby by a whisker. Ran incredibly. A lot of fun. Came back for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Finished, 2-3 lengths back of Sierra Leone and Fierceness. All things considered, ran a really solid race. That pace was ultra hot, and he was up on it for a large part of that race. Lost nothing in that defeat. I mean, got a 111 Brisnet speed figure, which is awesome. Followed that up with a win in Japan in one of their Group 1 races. He won the Saudi Cup, finished third by less than 2 lengths in the Dubai World Cup behind Hit Show and Mixto. And then his last prep race, just going off of the Brisnet PPs here, it looks like it was a $460,000 like listed stakes race, which sounds incredible. But he won that, and then is on the grounds at Del Mar. He is the most interesting horse to me over the 2 days. Perhaps, maybe some people have forgotten about him. He was the buzz horse last year, right? Because we saw him twice, and he ran bang up races both times in the U.S. But a little bit of a lighter campaign this year. He's only run 3 times, so he's super interesting to me, and I'll be excited to see him run. I don't know. Not sure how you can leave him off your tickets. But we shall see. He's very, very interesting for me in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I've got no problem with this, quote unquote rabbit thing. I think it keeps things honest and interesting, right? I mean, it's another data point, right? It's another opportunity to give yourself somewhat of an edge. And sure, everybody else has that edge too, but I think we need to accept it and utilize it to our advantage. And I think that is totally fine. It's been happening for forever and ever, and I've got no issue with it. For what it's worth. Not that anybody needs to know what I think of it, but totally cool with it. All right, we'll leave it there. Big gaps between the European turf runners and the American-based turf runners, and we'll see how that plays out on Saturday. Breeders' Cup coming up, the most exciting 2 days of racing in the fall to round out the year. So very excited for the Breeders' Cup on Friday and Saturday. If you haven't grabbed your PDF, if you haven't grabbed your seat at the Q&A with the Pick Six King, John Stetton, please do that. PassTheWire.com. This is Sunday Morning Coffee with Big Race Jim on Pass the Wire TV, brought to you by AmWager, Tampa Bay Downs, Pleasant Acres, Shore Bet Coffee, and I think that's it. Have a great week.
Here comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, heading to the final furlong. Sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Pass the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Pass the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.